Well, hello, everybody. I know it's the last session of the day before we're standing between you and cocktails and some snacks, but I promise you an engaging session, and thanks for attending. This is Designing for Humanity Using Immersive Technology for Impact. As you know, here at iicon, we're exploring the myriads of ways that interactive technology, immersive technologies can reshape virtually every industry on the planet. You're going to see sessions on fintech and healthcare and other entertainment industries and sports and so on and so on. Finance and news. Interactivity reshapes how we comprehend, learn, and succeed. And humanitarian organizations and researchers are no exception. This session brings together humanitarian leaders, researchers, and technologists to explore how simulation-based learning can strengthen empathy, ethical judgment, and cognitive resilience. Please help me welcome Marc Silverman to my far right. He's Strategic Technology Advisor from the International Committee of the Red Cross, the International Red Cross. To his left is Daniel Daugherty. He's the Principal Technology Product Manager of Innovation at the American Red Cross. And to my immediate right is Brittan Heller, a lawyer, a researcher, lecturer at the Stanford Virtual Human Interaction Lab. So welcome to you three. Pleasure to be with you on the panel. Thank you. So I think a great place to start is to hear about your work and your organization. We'll start with you, Marc.
Hi, Marc Silverman with the International Committee of the Red Cross. My part of the Red Cross works in situations of armed conflict, and we're written into the Geneva Conventions, the laws of war, to do certain activities in conflict, like visit prisoners of war, and our overall mission is to protect and assist victims of armed conflict. And our biggest operations this year would be Israel and the occupied territories, Yemen, Sudan, Syria, Ukraine, to name a few. We do a range of activities from feeding people, water, housing, through to what we would call protection, which is visiting people in prison and also talking to armed actors around the laws of war and their adherence to them.
Thanks, Marc. Very meaningful, important work. Daniel, please tell us about your role and your organization at the American Red Cross.
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. My name is Daniel Daugherty. I'm with the American Red Cross. So the American Red Cross primarily serves four mission areas. We have our biomedical, dealing with blood donations, blood manufacturing. We have our humanitarian line of business, primarily focusing around providing disaster relief and assistance. We have training services focusing on delivering training for CPR, first aid, and then we have our service to the armed forces. I sit with the innovation team as a product manager, and our team essentially functions as a little bit of a technology incubator within the organization. So across all the different lines of business within American Red Cross, we try to help with experimentation, identifying different emerging technologies that can help solve different pain points or opportunities within the American Red Cross.
Awesome. All four pillars that you address. Great. And Brittan, I know you wear many hats.
I do.
Please tell us about them.
Hi, I'm Brittan Heller. I'm from Stanford University. My main home is at the law school, where I run the program on law, science, and technology. My background is in international law, in particular international human rights law. I was a prosecutor at the International Criminal Court. I worked with North Korean refugees. I started a law school in Afghanistan, and it all led me to look at technology and how we could use technology as a tool in statescraft, in engagement, and in advocacy. So a lot of my research focuses on cutting-edge technology and how it aligns with existing human rights laws. So I advise a lot of governments, a lot of international organizations, and work with a lot of gaming companies and nonprofits and tech companies on how to make things better.
Well, thank you for making us feel wholly incompetent at whatever we've all collectively achieved in our lives. And Marc and Brittan, I understand you have a connection through Stanford, is it? Marc, you've been a guest lecturer there?
Marc teaches my classes when I don't want to. Oh, Marc has been able to come and highlight some of the great work that the International Red Cross has done, and actually has used my students as kind of beta testers to give feedback on the projects that are looking at the role of tech companies in armed conflict.
Awesome. So with that in mind, speaking of the role of technology, that's a great segue, and we'll start with you, Brittan, on how exactly you're embracing interactive content to help do your job.
So I came to Silicon Valley to run a civil rights and technology nonprofit. It was the first one in the Valley, and it was about 10 years ago. So we started looking at immersive technology and gaming in particular, and how that could be an avenue to reach people where they're at and have new levels of engagement with people. That kind of work, I still do it. In my Intro to International Law class, we try to have at least one gaming or immersive session per class. The one with Marc, and I'll save that for you to talk about, is one of my students' favorite. Last year, we brought in some independent developers and were able to place the international relations students inside a Yazidi village. And they were able to explore the village and look at what a war crime-related site would be like in actuality, and then follow 3 branching narratives. They got to pick one, which was of somebody who may have committed sexual violence in the theater of war, someone who was the victim of sexual violence, and a family member of that person. And I then brought the experience makers into the class to talk with the students about how they made the experience, what choices they made in the experience, and and then the students engaged back with how that kind of helped them learn what they thought that glossed over and didn't do very well, and what they wished was different so that they could have understood it better. So it was a really reciprocal exchange, and I was able to, through my lab and Jeremy Balance's Stanford lab and the filmmakers, we were able to gather enough headsets to get every student in international relations in a headset. So we try really, really hard to use this technology as a way to personalize experiences, to make the pedagogy better, and to really engage critical thinking in a way that doesn't happen if they're just reading about it in the news or on a page.
And Daniel, you and your organization, you embrace virtual reality as well as a training tool.
Absolutely, yeah. So especially in our training services line of business, we had a really great use case of VR technology. It was a use case for lifeguarding. We had our lifeguard SMEs basically were able to identify a really big gap in kind of the traditional classroom environment for how we're currently teaching lifeguarding. There is this huge kind of gap between learning how to spot the signs of someone who's drowning in the textbook, kind of in a classroom setting, versus actually getting up on that lifeguard stand. And when that kind of situation unfolds in front of you, a lot of lifeguards will freeze just because it's a very kind of shocking situation. So we developed a VR simulation that helps students kind of practice those techniques that they're learning in the classroom, primarily around scanning and identifying those different signs of a drowning person inside of a pool. This was a great experience. There's a lot of kind of logistics that go into trying to recreate these kinds of drowning situations in real life. They also pose a lot of dangers just for people who are trying to act out that they're drowning. But with this technology, we're able to kind of provide more opportunities to kind of practice those life-threatening kind of scenarios to help better prepare the lifeguards for when those situations actually happen.
Anecdotally, have you found that this simulating somebody drowning and acting on it that you've talked to a lifeguard that had saved someone's life and they cited the technology as something that was useful?
Absolutely. So with one of our early close partners, the lifeguard manager at that facility was a very strong trailblazer for the solution when we first launched it. He shared with us that when he first started his lifeguarding career, he was a victim of the freeze. So when he was up on that lifeguard stand, he went through the traditional classroom trainings. A child was drowning in front of him and he froze, and he had to be snapped, alert by his lifeguard manager in order to jump in and save the kid. And when that freeze happens, seconds really matter. Just if you're not having oxygen to your brain, it can lead to some very bad consequences. So he himself experienced that kind of situation. And when they were starting to implement the lifeguard solution with their trainees, he would also notice that several of the lifeguard trainees that were going through these scenarios, when the drowning person would start in the scenario, they would also freeze in this lifeguard simulation, and he had to kind of prod them and encourage them to blow their whistle in the experience and identify the person. So we were able to recreate that exact same freeze that he experienced, but in a real life-threatening situation. Whereas in the VR simulation, it's a much more controlled, safe environment to kind of practice these skills.
Yeah, thanks for that. Marc, can you tell us a bit more specifically with examples how, with your work with the International Red Cross, how you embrace mixed reality or other technologies?
So I like the word embrace, and I think that's something we've been trying to do over the past few years of embrace the digital transformation in the context of understanding that digital technologies are fundamentally impacting the world, society, and conflict. So it doesn't necessarily always mean that it's good, but you have to embrace it to understand the ways in which you can potentially use the technology, harness it, help people with it, but also the way that those same or other technologies may lead to harm. So that's part of the origin and creation of my job, which is as a representative in the Bay Area, to try to learn and develop partnerships with tech companies, but also to have a discussion with them around the impact of their technology in armed conflict. And if we go from that sort of overarching umbrella down into immersive technology and gaming, we've seen 3 areas that we've been exploring for more or less 15 years: internal training, external training, and advocacy. And the immersive elements, and I think everyone knows that's, is it the headset, is it moving towards other types of augmented reality, is incredibly powerful. And I think what Daniel was sharing and what Brittan was sharing is exactly towards that. So how can that be harnessed in a way? The example that I have in mind is training with military, right? When you're talking about the laws of war, it can get a little dry. When you're training people about distinction and proportionality, but when you're able to put them into a battlefield scenario and talk through what are the law, how does the law translate into rules of engagement, how are rules of engagement followed, it makes it much more visceral, it makes it much more powerful. And we've seen that the empathy building, I mean, it's exactly what you talked about at the beginning, Marc, the empathy building and the memory retention is superior to regular classroom instruction, or at least as good if you're able to do that. So those are some of the areas. I'm happy to talk. I mean, yeah, many more examples, but
because this at iicon, we've been talking about gaming fused with other industries, but I guess we need to be careful here with your humanitarian work that you do. It's not for entertainment's sake, just to obviously be clear. This is a teaching tool that can simulate a real world environment because it's 360 degrees and spatial audio, in some cases tactile feedback. You're meant to replicate what it's being there, but you're in the safety of your own city in the US. But the perception might be like, oh, are you having, you were talking about sexual violence, what you were doing with your students. There's obviously, that's not what the goal is here. But I'm wondering if you've ever had that, if you've talked to people about your work and they misunderstand this isn't Call of Duty, which is meant to be fun. You know what I mean? Is that is something you've ever heard, or do they understand that this is a training tool?
So I actually think it's important to talk about both, and it's one of the I think we'll get to this later, but one of the reasons why I'm personally excited to be here is to connect with gaming companies and others, because the way that people playing games, the way we think about norms, or the way we think about ethics, the way we think about empathy, are there ways to bring elements of the work that we do into popular games, not as branded opportunities, but as teaching? So one of the examples that we've had or explored, which has typically been misunderstood, if you're in a first-person shooter, can you bring the laws of war in a way that makes the game more challenging and more fun?
Right.
In that, you're
like
learning.
Saving civilians or POWs.
Right. If you shoot the ambulance, maybe you get in trouble. If you rescue the ambulance, maybe you get extra. I mean, I don't know what the game developers would know better than I would. So I think there are opportunities for more broad-based learning through game. But yes, that is distinctive from a first aid or a lifeguard training or a training for the military. And yes, people do misunderstand it. But once you explain, no, this is really sort of a way to augment classroom training rather than a video game, they tend to get it.
And I think if you're talking about broader principles, you can integrate those in a way that is fundamentally entertaining and educational, but it's kind of like those cookbooks that tell you to put the pureed vegetables in the cupcake.
Right.
Cupcake still tastes good. People still like the cupcake.
So it's a means to an end. It's a way to keep the audience, in your case, your students, engaged, but it's not meant to be entertaining.
I once ran ran a game jam to encourage people to intervene in burgeoning hate crime situations, because the research shows that you want people to. There are certain things that you can do. There's 4 things you can do to try to intervene in a hate crime and keep everybody safe and really diffuse the situation. So we had a game jam to try to gamify that. And the game that I liked the best, it was not the one that won, but it was kind of had an overlap with atrocities prevention. And the developers made this little jelly bean world. And you could see all the little jelly beans running around, and they were having fun. And then you could see them start to have conflict. And what you could do was kind of like the Monty Python hand of God things, where they asked you what you wanted to do. Did you want to intervene? Did you want to watch? Did you want to make things worse? So you could bring down a hand like Monty Python and squash the beans. And of course, everybody does that first. And then you saw that it made the situation worse all around. And so people are like, oh, maybe it's not a good idea to combat aggression with aggression, because then it makes even more aggression. It was really, really simple. It was grounded in great principles. And it was my vote to win the game jam because everybody remembered it. And when they left, they had this new set of skills to practice without feeling like they had eaten like a broccoli cupcake.
Yeah, I get the analogy. That's great. There's incidentally someone in our audience who's developed a game that's coming out in a couple of weeks that rewards good deeds in society as well, which you should chat with her afterwards. Anyhow, and Daniel, for you at iicon, do you have like an MO? Are you looking, is this business development? Is it partners to help with American Red Cross?
Definitely, yeah. I think, looking to make good connections, just, we see how powerful this emerging technology, immersive technology can be in helping us better serve our mission, ultimately helping save lives. Red Cross is always looking for more ways that we can drive engagement and also, kind of stay up to pace with the younger demographic as well. Lifeguard VR was a great fit with the younger, teenage demographic for lifeguards. We'd be very interested in seeing how gaming can also help drive a lot of engagement with the American Red Cross as well.
So we've been talking a lot about training internally, your own people, to do their job better. But you can probably use, and I think American Cross does, correct me if I'm wrong, use similar technologies in order to spread the word, to teach average civilians about things like emergency preparedness and lifeguarding skills even, right? Like, I mean, are you using this kind of technology to disseminate information to the masses as well?
We would love to. I know we are looking to also release Lifeguard VR publicly as well, just to help the everyday person kind of understand what drowning looks like as well.
I think there was, maybe it wasn't American Red Cross, but there was like a gamified app on disaster preparedness, like building a first aid kit and dragging and dropping elements into the kit to make it fun. And then, God forbid, something happens, you know what to do because you've played that game.
I think that might have been a ICRC.
Yeah, maybe it was international. Yeah. Marc, does your organization, if reaching out to the masses. I know you do for other purposes like fundraising and all that. Do you use technology outside of to share the information with people?
Absolutely. There's a few examples. One was the example that Brittan was referring to before, where we worked with some game developers on taking an existing game, which was about teaching about trust and safety inside companies, and making a conflict-specific version of it, which was part of a piece of work that we're doing both to engage with companies, but also with others around the specificity of conflict and the dynamics of conflict and technology, and what can people do to be helpful or to navigate those issues. So we have another series which is called Digital Dilemmas, which is to try to get outside of the thinking of this binary, oh, it's all easy and done, or you can't use it, or it's all terrible, into, when you're a conflict-affected civilian and you're trying to help your loved one, crossing lines, getting access to care can be really complicated in the ways that technology often asks for data, and the way that you navigate that can be really complicated. So it's part of the way that we're trying to bring some of this information, make it accessible, but also to engage for change, which is, instead of just a generic, how does this affect anybody? How does this affect, if you were in a conflict situation, how would this affect your loved one? And then what could you do to make their life easier?
Brittan said earlier that you use this tool to personalize the experience. Marc, just to stick with you for a moment, when you're talking about rules of engagement, like with war crimes and dealing with on battlefields, there are societal, cultural differences on how things should be dealt with. How do you, it's not one template that you're training that goes out internationally. Can you tweak it to different groups to be relevant for their cultures?
The short answer is yes. The longer answer is, as ICRC, part of our mandate is to promote the respect and adherence to international humanitarian law. And a lot of that work over decades has been around contextualizing those notions of the law with, Buddhism and IHL, Islam and IHL, African tribal traditions in IHL. And hopefully it's not a surprise that there's a lot of similarities across societies around fundamental norms of, protecting women and children. And there's a whole host of them. I would defer to the international legal scholar to talk us through them all. But you really, particularly on things that are going more broad-based, those are the ones we really try to touch to, because those are the fundamental protections, right? Not the idea of chivalry and not summarily executing a prisoner, but treating them well. These are some of the core traditions that we see globally, and then you're trying to tease that out and then connect it to this body of law. And then, as you're saying, you connect it back to them. So it's not being imposed as a foreign source, but it's really coming from a place that's owned by them.
Thanks for that. Brittan, what's next? What's next in how you're leveraging technology for your work? Where do you foresee the next 12 to 24 months?
Ooh, this is fun.
AI? Do you leverage AI at all?
I do.
It's a custom.
While I am here, my students are taking a vibe coding workshop to help them develop their own legal tools. I teach also advanced degree law students, so people who come from all over the world, have been lawyers for 5 to 10 years, and are about to take the American bar exam and then go back home or start a practice here. What I think is next is AI is the rocket fuel, and sort of immersive hardware is the rocket ship. So I'm really looking at AI-enabled smart glasses, because digital overlays on physical space will untether us from the cost burden of the headsets, from some of the challenges, because having vibe-coded multimodal content is it's there, but it's more nascent than other forms. And so looking looking at people to focus more on AR with AI smart glasses and phone bases. That's immersive as well, and sometimes people don't think of it as such, but that's a good way to get more people involved that will help companies work with nonprofits in a more affordable way.
Daniel, I asked you this earlier, I think prior to the chat today, that you're like a liaison between the technology and gaming world and the work that American Red Cross does. Forgive me for paraphrasing, and I think you said that was correct. So what other tools are in your arsenal, or is it virtual reality headsets or AR glasses?
We definitely have been looking at AR glasses as well, just to echo kind of what Brittan shared. I think with AR glasses, they're going to be a much more more easily accessed kind of device as well. Even with VR hardware, not everybody has a VR headset. There's some cost limitations there. But as the technology progresses, I think we're really excited to see, just with Lifeguard VR, we're really interested in kind of exploring, instead of it being a fully virtual kind of scenario, using augmented reality to actually overlay on your pool at your facility, where we overlay characters that play out that scenario, but in the bounds of the pool that you would kind of oversee. Also with AI as well, we're very excited just for using AI as kind of a tool to help improve our training experiences. So being able to add randomization to help deliver more training content. We're also looking at it to help improve our processes for creating kind of the more traditional training content as well. So a lot of like textbooks, video scripts that we use for our CPR training, first aid training, that kind of material as well. We're looking to help accelerate that.
I had one interjection, if you don't mind me. Just, don't give up on traditional gaming as well. I know when people say what's next, everything old is retro again, right? I always look at Second Life, and the average user of Second Life has been invested in the platform for over a decade. If you look at the amount of money that goes through in the in-game currency, it would be in the top 20 global economies. And if you actually look at what Philip Rosedale built with Second Life, if you ask him about it, which I did at a conference, it's an experiment in universal basic income. That's what Second Life actually is before it's a social platform. So looking at the possibilities of traditional gaming to meet the challenges of today, that's not what's necessarily next, because it's always on the horizon, but I think it could really be exciting and new.
Marc, before we end off on you, Brittan, Marc did say earlier that when I asked him, is there this risk of these gamified experiences meant for training to be perceived as entertainment when you're dealing with such dire topics? But Marc flipped it around and said, actually, they also are thinking of ways, like how can they integrate their work into entertainment? Like he gave the example of in a shooter, some of the humanitarian decisions that you make, you could be rewarded for it. Is there anything in your line of work that could be placed, perhaps, if you meet someone this week at iicon that works at Ubisoft or EA, is there anything that you think any of your work could be relevant to masses?
Privacy challenges. I did some research with a group of professors across the country to see if we could make people more aware that their eyes were being tracked and try to see how users would respond to that. Because the assumption was people, we wanted to get past the model in like 2D to 3D computing of just scrolling through something and clicking consent. So how does consent evolve when you move into immersive spaces? People loved what we came up with, and that's what shocked me the most, because I didn't think people would actually like it, and said that the experience, which was basically having them use their eyes to manipulate the environment, going through a virtual art gallery, made it, and explaining to them how the technology worked before they were asked to consent to it. They said they should go back to that at least every 6 months. There should be a way that they could do it. It made them actually really enthusiastic about the platform in a way that I didn't expect. So looking at the way that we translate traditional gaming experiences into immersive media and using the specific affordances of 3D computing to help people have more choices. Everyone asks me, how do you make a human rights friendly game? You give people more choices and you give them more information. And then you have happier users, more informed users, and it's more human rights friendly.
Great. So, Marc, what's next for you and the International Red Cross when it comes to technology? You're in Silicon Valley, so I'd love to hear your answer on this.
I mean, for the last question, you really want to go super broad, or do you want me to go back to gaming?
You can take it however you like. And what you'd like to gain here at iicon as well.
So just bouncing off of what Brittan was talking about, I think in addition to those really good ideas, I think a fundamental piece is, we've been talking about empathy. One of our core principles is humanity. Like, how can this idea of seeing the other as human, because that's certainly what we see in conflict. When you're able to say the other side is not human, is when you see atrocities. And so what are the ways that, so this is, for being here this week, how do we talk to others not to do it in a, as Brittan was saying, in a broccoli fashion, but in a cupcake fashion, how to introduce those notions of empathy and humanity, and that we're all human, even if we disagree with each other, even if we're at war with each other, it doesn't mean anything goes. So that's certainly something I hope we can have discussions on this week and going forward. And then certainly internally, we've been investing, we'll continue to invest, and can benefit from knowledge and expertise on how do we develop our own games and use them effectively for our own staff training, for training of external people. It's not always partners, right? Military is not a partner, but they are people that we, or non-state armed groups that we engage with, and then a broader advocacy. I'll stop there.
Excellent. No. That's fantastic. I just want to thank you all. I want to be respectful of the time. I think we're a tad over the clock, but a very engaging and insightful discussion. Thank you so much, Brittan and Daniel and Marc. Please help me give them a thank you. And continued success in your important work. Thank you again. Thanks, everyone.